Today is the 14th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Cycle Day. Zechariah was a prophet after the return of the Jews from exile. They were struggling to rebuild the city and the temple. Once again, they were more concerned about the physical rather than the spiritual. He reminded the people that their suffering was because they had disobeyed God's commands. Render true justice and show kindness and compassion to each other. Do not oppress the widow or orphans, the alien or the poor, and do not plot evil against one another in your hearts. Zechariah 7, chapter 7, 9 to 10. For a nation that had been conquered and humiliated, being obedient to God's covenant and His commands was the surest path to security and rebuilding the nation. God also promised the Messiah would be a man of peace. He would rather ride a donkey, a beast of burden, than a war horse or a chariot. He will bring peace to all nations, although written 700 years before the incarnation of Christ. It is a reference to Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a donkey on Palm Sunday. The whole world is in financial uncertainty due to inflation. There are chaos and unrest in the streets of many countries and deadly violence every weekend in the inner cities of the United States of America. There are those seeking peaceful change, but among them there are those using violence to take revenge for past hurts. With no human solution in sight, it is time to recognize our dependence on God and turn to Him for the solution. I believe that the commands to forgive and to love our enemies, as difficult as they are for some to consider, they are the way to unite and heal our nation. St. Paul asks us to live in the Spirit and not in the flesh. Because we have the Holy Spirit within us, we are to love spiritual things more than material things. The essence of God is love. Any participation in an act of love is participation in the life of God. Therefore, relationship with God, spouses, children, family, co-workers, neighbors, and others are of a spiritual nature. The maintenance of the above-mentioned relations are more important than having a new car, TV, phone, clothes, shoes, and jewelry. If you believe in the resurrection, you will live a life of virtue, because you will have to give account of your life on the day of judgment. If you believe that there is only this life and there is nothingness after death, you will live a life of physical pleasure, food, alcohol, drugs, and sex. Such a life is called hedonism and leads to greed and selfishness, which destroys family and society and creates many sufferings. The only good thing about suffering is that it may bring some to their senses and recognize need God, who is our Creator. The gospel, Jesus thanked you, Father, for the gift of wisdom he had given the disciples. In our case, it's the gift of faith to believe in the mysteries of the church. Belief in the resurrection. That bread and wine is transformed into the body and blood of Christ. And we have the Holy Spirit within us, etc. He tells us that we cannot have an intimate relationship with the Father unless we have one with Him. How close is our relationship with Jesus, and how much do we trust Him? An animal that wears a yoke is always led by someone else to plow a field or to turn a millstone. To put on the yoke of Christ is to allow Him, Jesus, to guide us. He tells us that we cannot have an intimate relationship with the Father unless we have one with Him. How close is our relationship with Jesus, and how much do we trust Him? An animal that wears a yoke is always led by someone to plow a field or to turn a millstone. To put on the yoke of Christ is to allow Him to guide us without hesitation or wishing to turn back. We are yoked to Christ when we are obedient to His teachings. Faith is trusting in the teachings of Christ, even when it is difficult for us to accept. What teachings of Christ are you struggling to understand and accept? Abortion, contraception, forgiveness, homosexuality, humility, love of enemies, obligation to care for the poor, your duty to give your time, talent, and treasure, tithings, to the church. Faith requires acceptance and obedience.